I know that this looks unusual, and I want to call your attention because we are in unusual times. For a long time, we have been sitting on bills that would change the state of our Commonwealth. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but for the last 2 weeks, people all across our country have been taken to the street to demand that we acknowledge that Black Lives Matter. For 1 year now, we have had a suite of bills that have sat in committee with no action. We have called for action, we have called for a vote with no response. We have brought hundreds and hundreds of people down to the Capitol, our constituents from around the Commonwealth, to demand access because we recognize that we cannot go on any longer until we do something about the police brutality that is happening in our Commonwealth. So today, me and the legislators that are around me are refusing to allow us to move forward with business as usual.
Whoop, whoop. It is Friday, June 12th, 2020. Welcome to Raging Chicken's Out to Coot podcast. Yes, everybody, that was Summer Lee on the floor of the house in PA, tearing it up. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Each week I talk to our Capitol death cult paparazzi and failed state survivor, Sean Kitchen, about the good, the bad, and the ugly in state and national politics. On today's show, we got a big one, everybody. Calls to defund police departments across the country gain traction. Alex Vitale, author of The End of Policing and professor of sociology at Brooklyn College, he's been making the media rounds, making a case for divesting from policing and reinvesting in our communities. While defunding the police is freaking out failed state extremists on the right, we'll talk a little bit about what defunding police actually means. And when you consider the U.S. police budget is bigger than nearly every other nation's military budget, that comes in at $115 billion. That's billion with a B, boy. You begin to see the kind of funding that we've channeled into police while cutting community investment. And the statues come tumbling down. Yes, Christopher Columbus, John Colston, slave traders, Confederate soldiers alike were toppled all over the U.S. this week. And go get your shine box, because all three NYPD cop unions went on a media blitz this week asking Trump to bring in the troops and stop the peaceful protesting. And they were also advertising that these white cops are what these cops are willing to do to be Trump's fascist street fighters in order to suppress Black Lives Matter movement and protect the Trump regime. It's got to be a new, Trump anthem to go with this, I think. Maybe this one. You are an idiot! That works. Trump announces a return to in-person mega rallies. The first will be held in Tulsa, Oklahoma on June 19th. That's right. Trump's first rally since the COVID-19 quarantine is being held on Juneteenth. You know, that holiday to commemorate the day of Emancipation Proclamation was read out in Texas. The newly freed Black Americans. You know, Texas, the last Confederate state holdout to announce that proclamation. Yeah, that's Juneteenth. And this year is also the 99th anniversary of the Tulsa Race Massacre, in which white mobs burned and looted black-owned businesses in Tulsa's Black Wall Street. Over 6,000 black Americans were hospitalized. At least 36 were killed. What do you think the chances are that Trump chose that city on that day so that he could offer a message of racial reconciliation? Yeah, that'd be tremendous. It'd be beautiful. It'd be wonderful. I doubt it. And Chicago police were caught on tape, more bad apples, lounging around U.S. Representative Bobby Rush's district office as the streets outside his office were being looted and damaged. At least 13 police officers were caught making popcorn, brewing coffee, taking naps, and lounging with their feet on desks. Yes, while the looting was taking place in the street right outside the building. Oh, did I mention they didn't have Rush's permission to be in that office? Yeah, he only found out after he got a notice there was a break-in. The security tape showed the truth. Oh, Bobby Rush? Who's Bobby Rush? Oh, yeah, the guy who co-founded the Illinois chapter of the Black Panthers in the 1960s. What a coincidence. And he had to go into hiding after Chicago police assassinated Fred Hampton. Yeah, that Bobby Rush. That's right. Activists declare an autonomous zone in a 6-block area in the Capitol Hill neighborhood in Seattle. Whoop, whoop, declaring it a no-cop zone. Trump looks to be gearing up to militarize the repression, calling the activists domestic terrorists. Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkin tells Trump to go back to your bunker, even as she faces calls by activists for resignation. Oh, and you remember Janus? Yeah, you know, that Supreme Court decision that took aim at gutting public sector unions, that one? Yeah, well, the guy that brought the suit, Mark Janus, now works for the right-wing Liberty Justice Center. And he's got a new case moving through the courts. This time, Janus wants public sector unions to make the court's 2018 Janus decision retroactive, which would force public sector unions to refund millions of dollars in fair share fees. That's right. The court will decide next week if it will hear the case. I think the day before we go on for our podcast next week. And today is the 4th anniversary of the mass shooting at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. 49 people were killed and 53 were wounded. The shooting stands as the deadliest attack against the LGBT community in U.S. history. And yet another sober memorial, Medgar Evers was assassinated on this day in 1963 by a member of the Ku Klux Klan. Then we move on, everybody. While Black Lives Matter protests in Pennsylvania, large cities made national news. This past week saw more than 100 protests in at least 61 of the state's 67 counties. And the Pennsylvania House Legislative Black Caucus pulled a coup at the start of the session. You heard Summer Lee at the top. They took over the House Speaker's rostrum out of protest and shared their feelings on the House Republicans' inaction on police reform since Antoine Rose was murdered by an East Pittsburgh cop. Bad apple. Turzai promised Black Caucus a special session to combat police violence, but Speaker Turzai also announced that he was resigning on Wednesday. And while failing to follow through on his promise for that special session, however, the House Judiciary Committee will meet next week to potentially vote on some of these bills out of committee. Yeah, Turzai, run away, run away. You are an idiot. And what did Summer Lee do to Turzai? Whoa.
Wow. She gutted him like a fish.
That's right, that's right.
Did you hear his going away speech?
No. You'll have to tell us all about it.
It sounded like Michael Scott.
Oh, God. Well, PA's State System of Higher Education Board of Governors announced plans to return to some form of face-to-face instruction in the fall. Chancellor Daniel Greenstein, Chancellor Dan, says that plans will be finalized in the coming weeks. Who makes those plans? Based on what criteria? Would kind of be good to know, right? Yeah, that's right. And today's last call, yes, the Senate Armed Services Committee passed a bill on Wednesday that established a Space Force National Guard. Yes! And remember when we told you the Space Force was seeking over 7,000 volunteers to transfer from the Air Force Commission to the Space Force? Well, grab your seats, everybody. This week, the Space Force officials announced that they far exceeded expectations. More than 8,500 airmen and women volunteered to join the Space Force. General John J. Raymond, the chief of space operations for the U.S. Space Force, said the new volunteers, quote, made the bold decision to volunteer to join the U.S. Space Force and defend the ultimate high ground. The militarization of galactic capitalism. There we go, folks. Speaking of the Space Force, did you check out Netflix's Space Force? We'll have a little breakdown. We wanted to give you a little week to just kind of let it sit on a little bit. Didn't want any spoilers.
Still didn't watch it.
Still didn't watch it. That's all right. I'll get spoiled all for you. And I just finished Station 11, which I've been talking about on this thing. It's a freaking fantastic book. If you check it out, Station 11, great book. I'll talk a little bit about later on. And I'm on to rereading Octavia Butler's Parable of the Sower, which is, I have to say, reading it years and years after I had originally read it, I realized how much I didn't get back then about the nuances, what was going on in there. I loved the book then. Now it is an explosion, and it's like prophetic. So highly recommend that. Free Will Brewing joins the wave of voices speaking out in support of the protests following the police murder of George Perry Floyd. They said, quote, in the past, we have always kept our message about beer and stayed out of social and political issues. We told ourselves we should be judged only by our actions. No more being quiet. We'll have the full statement for you, and kudos to Free Will for stepping up. And the people have spoken, and Free Will has responded. Safe Word is back in stock, ready for pickup or shipping to your door. Safe Word is that beautiful Imperial IPA with mangoes and habaneros that coming in at a big 10.2 ABV. It's definitely one of my favorites. And you get 4 packs of Safe Words, and several other selections, including Haymaker Mead, their online store at freewillbrewing.store. Remind everybody to tune in to the Rick Smith Show, and this and every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can stream the show live at freespeech.org or tune in the Dish Network, DirecTV, or through the Free Speech TV app on Roku. And make sure you download the Rick Smith Show's daily podcast on iTunes, Podbean, or wherever you get your podcasts. And look, if we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. You can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We're expanding our network. We're streaming live, right, as we prepare for the fight of our lives, for the fight of the future in 2020. We're all in for the fight, and now we need you. We're not asking you to break the bank. We're asking you to become a member for the price of a good beer once a month. Help keep the media in the movement and the movement in the media. Become a member of Raging Chicken for as little as $5 a month by going to patreon.com/rcpress today. Well, here we are, Sean. It is,
it's Friday.
It's Friday, and it's a Friday in, like, our dystopian future. And so it's like, okay, let's talk about the things that, these are the things that is a waste of breath saying. So I might as well say it now. One, it's been a crazy week. I think we're going to have to just abandon that. So just so everybody know, you can refer back to this episode if you want to know, like, the things that you stack up ahead of time. It's been a crazy week, right? Things are out of control. Trump is an idiot, right? And our own state legislator is dominated by a bunch of idiots too as well, right?
Well, there's one less idiot. There's going to be one less idiot in the House starting June 15th. With Mike Turzai not being around anymore. So,
do tell.
So Turzai's resigning.
Yes.
I don't know if he's going to miss me or not, but I'll miss him.
Well, I'll always go back to that. Let me see if you know what? I don't think I have the sound for that anymore. But I love that, that moment where Turzai kind of explained to a bunch of teachers about how they don't care about their kids. I mean, I think that was probably one of the highlights of your, of your friendship, I would say. What did you say?
So I have to put it together a top 5 Turzai moments for the lowlights of his
for people
for work for work this week. So I'm gonna have really a lot of fun. Like I already got my list written, and it's funny because the COVID cover up is not even on it. I'm gonna have an honorable mentions list.
It's got. I mean, seriously, which is crazy, right? It's crazy.
I mean, it's like a fucking rap sheet. So I actually sat through and watched his so the other day I was making dinner, right, and I forgot to get something when I went to the store earlier that day. So I went out around 1:30, and Roxbury called me and said, hey, Turzai's making his announcement at 1:45. Are you going to watch it? I was like, no, fuck that shit. I'm not going to stick around. I have to go to the store. It's 90 degrees out. My AC in the car doesn't work. I just wanted to get that shit done over with real quickly.
You were grumpy. Just say you're grumpy.
Oh, no, it was not grumpy. It was just I had a really short window between that and one of my phone calls. So I just wanted to get stuff done as quickly as possible.
Right.
So when I came back, it was around 2:00, Turzai was speaking, and I literally just sat there and live tweeted it until 3:00. He spoke for an hour and 15 minutes. Oh, I don't even know how to describe the speech. Rambling was a good word. Something like Michael Scott from The Office would be proud of. There were so many just personal attacks towards Wolf and others, where it was just backhanded, snidey, petty attacks on the way out the door. And then he would just say stuff that would really on par with you miss 100% of the shots you never take. That's it could have been a scene from The Office. He might just go out and go start his own paper company after this.
Please tell me that is available online someplace, because I think I'm gonna have to do some stuff with the sound on that.
I don't know, but I might be able to get it for you.
All right,
the file.
That would be awesome. I will search for it too as well, because it's
crazy. It was just an hour and 20 minutes of just rambling nonsense. So, and then they put this video together that was paid for by taxpayer dollars towards an ultra right wing conservative media.
Because of course it was.
Yes. So that's great.
Oh man. Well, good riddance, Mike Terza. Now, when is this resignation effective?
June 15th.
June 15th.
Last day. Yeah.
Surprised he didn't make it June 19th just to kind of like pair up with frickin' Trump on his Juneteenth celebrations.
No, I think he just didn't want to work at all next week and just like, fuck this shit, I'm done.
And June 15th, I'm like a good day.
So like he didn't even announce that he was retiring or what his last day was, like during his retirement speech. Until like someone had to ask him and clarify, are you stepping down? Are you going to remain a House member? Are you leaving? Like what? Yeah.
Oh man. Well, good riddance, Mike Terzai. Yes. That's all I got to say. All right. So we'll have more to say about this too as well, because it's all tied up in stuff that went down kind of in the PA legislature this week, and here. But really, the big news this week, I was realizing, Sean, as I was reading through the intro stuff today, that I didn't even put in there the coronavirus stuff, right, or the wildfires that are raging outside Tulsa, Arizona right now. Which just goes to show you kind of where we're at with stuff, because we're seeing again, all these states that opened up earlier in the coronavirus are now 14 days out from their opening up, and wouldn't you know it, big, huge spikes in cases, right? So Arizona being one of the most kind of dramatic, but we're also seeing it in Texas. We're also seeing it in North Carolina. We're also seeing it in
But it's the summertime. I thought it was going to go away. Yeah,
well, sunshine, right? Sunshine kills the virus, right?
Kills all germs.
It's all good. So, I mean, that just goes to show you. I mean, it's been interesting watching a lot of the news this week, which has shifted back to kind of coronavirus coverage, which is, I think it feels much more comfortable in doing, rather than kind of digging into the details of some of the stuff that's coming out of these ongoing protests after the killing of George Floyd. And I think what's really started to kind of catch fire this week, and I think, we're getting to see a little bit about how Republicans are going to make their play come in the fall, is that now we get these calls to kind of defund police departments kind of coming across the country. And that discussion has been unbelievable. I mean, if you think about, from Frank Rizzo, and I know we're talking about the statues in a second too as well, but Frank Rizzo's statue coming down right in the midst of these calls to defund the police department is kind of
the mural got covered up on the Italian market, which is like something you would never thought would happen a day before these protests started. Right. I mean, that mural was always always a target of vandalism and people throwing shit at it. Because of his racist legacy.
Yeah, because you throw shit at shit, right? I mean, that's how it works. I mean, that's what it goes. But I do think that there's, this, I think it seems to me like it feels like we're on the threshold again of a major transformation. And again, I don't want to get out kind of ahead of myself here and say that this is going to happen, but I don't think in my lifetime, certainly, I have never heard this degree of serious discussion about what it means to kind of demilitarize.
We're opening up the books.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, we're opening up the police budgets and we're trimming a whole bunch of fat. And we're going to reinvest that money elsewhere. I mean, that's the TLDR spark notes of this whole entire defund the police call. No, and it's got a lot of liberals worried, that's for sure, about the slogan, which has been phenomenal to watch their heads explode over this.
Well, look, we were talking about this beforehand, right? I mean, this is Democrats and liberals in particular, right? I mean, have got to stop being afraid of their own damn shadow or stories about the boogeyman, right? I mean, what I was saying to Sean beforehand, it's like when they hear the slogan defund the police, right? They freak out oh my God, Trump's going to have a victory. It's going to be the thing. The messaging is war is being lost.
While the charts, while the support, the movement,
right.
The support for this movement, literally tripled in support overnight, off the fucking charts, the calls for this stuff. And it's no, I mean, we're seeing that now. Yeah.
Right, but this is what happens when we've handed over, when a good chunk of the Democratic Party has been handed over to this kind of consultant class, when everything becomes about messaging, as if messaging is policy, right? That messaging,
and these are the same people who didn't message a fucking thing during the Trump impeachment, during the last crises, and now they get upset when we call for the abolition of ICE,
right?
Abolish ICE. That was a big thing, last summer.
Yeah. I remember Nancy Pelosi getting up there, leading the chants, abolish ICE, oh, wait a minute. That didn't happen. Right?
Right. But, also, I mean, it's not, this whole entire defund the police talk is not happening on the national level either. These are happening on the state and local levels in the municipalities, where we've allowed our police departments to militarize without, any certain degree. I mean, there's only a couple laws maybe that we can change nationally, to stop the military's the buyback programs and stuff.
Yeah, stop selling surplus military equipment,
like 1033.
Right, exactly. Right,
that would that's be a nice one of the things you can go after federally. But I mean,
the thing. Yes, you're absolutely right. Right, so that this happens because what it. But I think the important thing here, the bigger thing here is twofold. One, we have bought into a mentality about crime, a mentality about policing that has accompanied this kind of neoliberal order, right? So basically what happens when you cut money, right? And this, again, we have talked about this extensively on this podcast since the beginning, right? About the way in which austerity comes in, where the shock doctrine has dictated our lives, that we there's nothing we can do, there's no money. Meanwhile, billions of dollars are shifted to the billionaire and soon to be trillionaire class, right? And taken away from social programs and investment in our communities. But what has happened at a practical basis in localities, right? If you take money away from, right, mental health services, right, and make them harder to get at, and then you tell police that, okay, yes, there's a person that was probably having a psychotic episode, but we're no longer going to handle that through the mental health system. We're going to handle it as a crime that you are now going to be in charge of. And if you suddenly basically defund schools, right, and you have schools in such a situation that they, one, can't adequately provide education for students, especially in poor communities, right, and you've provided no other opportunities for them to go out, guess what happens? Those people end up going on the street, right? Do not have the education, move on. And if you don't kind of fund mitigation policies in buildings where you remove lead paint, you remove kind of lead from buildings, things like this, studies show that is an increase in criminalization down the road. And instead of kind of investing in our communities, we basically told police that it's all up to you. We're going to turn everything into a crime that is basically not white collar crime, because that's okay, but everything else is going to turn it into a crime. And we get into this black-white mentality, no pun intended, right? Because it's also deeply racialized. Right? Or
we're going to give your school $500,000 for a school resource officer instead of $500,000 going towards librarians, nurses, or teachers or support staff that are actually needed to be there for the developmental years of these kids in these grade schools.
Exactly. So this is why this becomes important, right? Because the defunding thing, one of the things that, again, we talked about before we went on the show today, is that we've got to make a separation here, right? Because what the message doesn't carry with it automatically all the policy and everything like this. There's a difference between a serious, long kind of investigative discussion about policy and politics. All right. And I think that, those of us who kind of came up, one in the activist community and in the academic community, it's true very often that in academics and professional class folks will often equate the messaging with the actual agenda and the actual politics. But the theory and the messaging is not the same as the politics, I would argue. Right. So, for example, while I am 100% behind a careful kind of discussion of plans for defunding police, right? And this is why I think it's been really important to have Alex Vitale out there. He's been everywhere in the media this week. He had this book, The End of Policing, in 2017, and he's actually, he teaches in kind of criminal justice, right, in Brooklyn College. He works with police officers as a consultant on kind of a variety of different policies around the country to defund police. It's important to have those really nuanced discussions. But at the political level, right, simply saying we need to look for reforms, right, is piddling along the edges at this point, and we're looking at things, and it reduces the horizon from the get-go. Yes, it is true. When you say defund the police, there are some people who get freaked out, right? Like the guy who jumps out behind the building with a werewolf costume and goes, boo, right? And all the liberals go, oh, no, right? But then you realize, wait, there's no werewolves. Wait, there's a guy in a mask. What's this all about, right? And the politics, you got to set your horizon in a way that actually gets people engaged in the issue. And this defunding the police is here. But Sean led out with, defunding the police is distinct from those folks that want to talk about abolishing police, right? We could have that.
And it's also like the messaging is on point, the slogan. Like for all these like progressives are always told we need better slogans. You know, you need like to actually get messaging. Right. Boom. Yeah, there's your bumper sticker, defund the police.
Yep.
And then, like,
take money from these particular programs in the police department and kind of move them into right? That doesn't go on a bumper sticker.
Yeah,
right?
like when you're explaining, when you're losing, you lose when you explain. Like, and we don't have to explain this. It's pretty fucking simple. D means to take away. Funds means money
from this organization, the police. Subject for John.
I actually replied to someone about that this week in a really snarky way. Like, I was like, D dash, and I gave a definition for it, and then fund. And I'm like, this is like pretty self-explanatory. They did not like the response.
No, but I mean, like, that's the case. Look, and I want to give a couple examples, right? One of the talking points that's coming out on the right has been okay, look, what's going to happen? You instead of dialing 911, you have someone's breaking into your house. You don't dial now, you dial 411, and you get some like switchboard operator in the state government, and then what are you going to do? You're going to send a tax preparer to your office? No. Like, as the example comes out, look, if there's a fire in your house, and you dial 911, right, and the operator picks it up, and you say, there's a fire in my house. They don't send, riot police to your house to put out the fire. They send the fire department, correct? Right? That's the idea. 911 can move things in different kind of emergencies. And they get us to say, oh, yeah, your fork got stuck in your garbage disposal? Not an emergency. Bye-bye. Right? They can do those things. So if you have somebody who's having a psychotic episode, for example, right, and you could dial 911, they could theoretically
send a social worker.
Send a kind of social worker or a specialized team that goes to help to de-escalate and get that person treatment. If somebody is having an overdose, right, or is having an issue, or there's a drug issue, you could send kind of social workers. You could send a whole bunch of other people, and you could do it the same way the police do, with union contracts, right, well paid, with benefits, right, as opposed to what we have now.
Well, also the police technically aren't a union, so.
We'll get
the fraternal,
right?
They're a frat.
Yeah, they're a frat. That's a good way of putting it. But you know what I mean, right? My point being is we could invest in that, and the systematic defunding of social services and our community infrastructures that have been turning over to police is a deep problem. And so you take the funds for that, and think about that: $115 billion in the United States goes towards policing.
$6 billion New York NYPD budget. That's fucking absurd. Like when I saw that the other day, their budget is $6 billion. And also in case anyone has been to a protest, during Occupy, the money that they spend on protest suppression is just absolutely insane. They'll have watchtowers that are sit a story up in the they do stuff that's just completely dystopian. And no, of course that's the only interactions I've had with the NYPD, but pretty fucking horrible.
Yep.
I don't know if it's a good segue point, but
I bet correct. Well, let me just say this. I'm going to give one example of what. So this is a good piece in New York Times kind of talk about this. It was an op-ed by Nicholas Kristof, who did actually a good job of breaking some of this stuff down. And so here's one of the examples that he gave. I'll read from this. So in the 1990s, right? Well, first it says defund the police is a catchy phrase, but some Americans hear it as an imagine a home invasion, frantic call 911, and then no one answering the phone, right? That's that kind of that scare everybody into fear and get them not to not act. But that's not what it is. Well, so here's an example he gives. In the 1990s, both the United States and Portugal were struggling with how to respond to illicit narcotics. The United States doubled down on the policing toolbox, while Portugal followed the advice of experts and decriminalized the possession even of hard drugs. So in 2001, Portugal, to use today's terminology, defunded the police for routine drug cases. Small-time users got help from social workers and access to free methadone from roving trucks. This worked, not perfectly, but pretty well. As I found out, and this is Christoph speaking, when I reported from Portugal a few years ago, the number of heroin users there fell by 3/4, and the overdose fatality rate was the lowest in Western Europe. Meanwhile, after decades of policing, the United States was losing about 70,000 Americans a year from overdoses. In effect, Portugal appeared to be winning the war on drugs by ending it. That's the idea behind defund the police, as most conceive it. Not to eliminate every police officer, but to reimagine the ways it is us to make us safe that don't necessarily involve traditional law enforcement. That's it in a nutshell. Right. And I think it's a really good, the link is in the show notes for today. I think it's an excellent way of kind of conceptualizing what we're actually talking about here about defunding the police. Right. How do you keep us safe in ways that that is not kind of by the barrel of a gun? Right. That's essentially it. But so anyway, so yeah, definitely check that out. There's also an excellent piece in The Cut, which is, again, it's kind of one of these Vox spinoffs and things like this. And it's a great piece by Amanda Arnold called What Does It Exactly Mean to Defund the Police? And again, it's a great breakdown of kind of what this means. It's a great kind of read. Again, this is linked in the show notes here today. So do check that out and kind of join that discussion, because that discussion is a really important one to have. And I also think that those of us on the left, right, need to kind of be prepared. Look, there's going to be liberals, right, and people that we'd otherwise be aligned with are going to be kind of, freaked out by that term. There's ways of giving these examples.
I think it's just stupid and overreaction.
It is, right? But then you can respond with easy examples like this, right, about what we're talking about, right, and get them thinking about this is about divestment and reinvestment, right? That's what we're talking about. So, speaking of divestment or maybe removal, right? There was some, let's say there's some kind of shifting of hardware this week. Was there not?
A bunch of statues came tumbling down, which I think is like awesome. I think the there's gonna be a whole new genre of like entertainment porn, and that's just people fucking whacking statues left and right. I mean, it brings a tears of joy to my eye watching this happen.
Yeah, man. Well, and not only that, and the areas that had once been strongholds of the Confederate flag and the Confederacy. Did you see this week about NASCAR?
Yeah.
Right. NASCAR outlawed the Confederate flag from that. And, right, Bubba Wallace, right, drove a Black Lives Matter car in a race, right, with his shirt that says, "I can't breathe, Black Lives Matter" on it. I mean, you want to talk about the heart of the, the leftover Confederacy, right? Yeah. About the sports where people go to. NASCAR is one of them. And to see the pushback in NASCAR is unreal.
Yeah. But, I mean, I guess it says a lot. Like, this movement isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, the tumbling of statues I think that sends a clear message. Like, this is not going away. Like,
nope. Nope, not at all.
I think it's just been pretty good watching it. I saw a tweet, and there's this woman. She's like, I study in ancient, she's like, I study in like modern arts, with sculptures. She's like, use chains; they're more effective, than ropes. So she's like use a chain and a hook. It's a lot more easier than using a rope to, remove these statues. But it's been fun watching it. I mean, it shows you that people are just fed up with the system. They're done with these fucking conversations about removing these statues, and they're taking to the streets, doing it on their own.
Yeah, no, exactly. Do you have a particular favorite among all of them?
I like the Colston statue. That was good. Watching that just get like rolled down the street and just hoist it right into the fucking harbor.
That was my favorite, right? The Bristol, right? Is in Bristol.
Yeah, in Bristol.
That was my all-time favorite. That was great. That was great. I'm like, I'll give you something for your wishing well.
But also, what's your view, like, with the international solidarity that's happening with this? And that, the scale and scope of this, I mean, we didn't have it in the show notes, but like Philadelphia this past weekend had at least probably 100,000 people on the Parkway. I mean, there were massive rallies all across the country. Millions of people came out over the weekend. And like, what? Yeah, like what? Sorry,
like, no,
what?
Look, this is what I think is different about this, right? Is that
I think the movement's exploding,
right?
Still, and like these toppling of statues is just like a sign, like fuck you, people, that we're not going anywhere. Or I don't know. It's a very confrontational. Like, we're doing this on our own. We're solving this shit now, and this is only the beginning.
Well, look, I think put this in context, right? I mean, what we're seeing now in many ways, from at least my read on this, right, is we're talking about solidarity, but solidarity in a different way. Like we have a lot of these protests are not simply about we're showing solidarity in a symbolic fashion to what's going on in the United States. There is that component of it. But what you're finding is like, look, this is years of anti-colonial and anti-racist organizing across the globe, right? What this has sparked is it brought that to fruition. So, for example, I was listening to this thing about what's going on in France right now, right? It was really interesting. Like in France, every year, about 15 people, people of color, are killed by the police, right? While in the United States, thousands of people of color are killed. Right. So it's not comparable. Right. It's not nearly as violent, but nonetheless, that is still a subtext. We know there's been a whole bunch of anti-Muslim sentiment in France and all this other kinds of stuff. But what is happening? France is also, at the center of that colonial legacy, right, in North Africa, right? And a lot of these communities are actually coming out to kind of like bring their, petitions to the government, so to speak, and demanding fundamental change. And so we see this, again, I don't want to go all kind of academic-y on you, but Hart and Negri's book, The Empire, they talked about this idea about how their particular local struggles can rise to the level of the global, right? And I think this is a perfect example of this, because we're seeing a similar structure of white supremacy has reeled its ugly head across the globe again, and these anti-racist, anti-colonial struggles have been organizing for decades and decades, and now it's brought to a head where we think we can actually have an opportunity to address this systemically.
I mean, for me, so in 2011, I wrote a paper for my political geography class about the connections between the Indigenous movement, Wisconsin, and Tahrir Square, and how these are all localized regional events, and how they're all connected on the state, the local, the very local, the region, and then the international levels. And I think we're seeing this again, but it also feels like the killing of George Floyd is the self-immolation of the Tunisian fruit vendor, and how it just sparked a wave of revolution just because of the oppression from the state.
Right. I think that's a good analogy. Yeah.
And we were the day before this happened, with George Floyd, that failed state report came out, and I shared with you. Mm-hmm. And literally, one of the quotes was there is so much tin kindling in the underbrush that's just dried and building up, and it only takes one spark, one death,
right,
of someone. And these movements just don't happen from a powerful person dying. No, it happens from someone who is in the forgotten class dying, the self-immolation, someone who's just a peasant, from the peasant class, or from our racist caste system. And look what it sparked.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen it in the past before, building up and catching fire, but then the fire goes out quickly. But this just set the whole entire forest ablaze, pretty much.
Right. And you cannot and disconnect.
We're not putting this genie back in the bottle.
No, right. But you also, you're talking about, I think you can't disconnect that too from the kind of millennials coming of age, right? The fact the most diverse generation. Well, not even the
millennials, but now the Gen Z kids that are leading this movement, pretty much. This isn't this movement's being led by the youngest generation, and they're doing it in ways where, how they're doing it in ways we haven't seen before, especially organizing through TikTok and Instagram.
Right.
Instead of they're not using platforms like Facebook or Twitter.
Yep.
Which is, imagine all the stuff we're seeing as an older generation of internet users through like Twitter and Facebook.
Yeah,
now,
the stuff that comes into my Hotmail account is unbelievable. No, just kidding.
But no, I mean, but like, think about like what we're seeing on those platforms, but like they're seeing on TikTok and Instagram and just taking off like wildfire.
Exactly. But, I absolutely agree with that. And I think that what I mean here, though, I think it's important to underscore, though, however, when you talk about when I mean by the millennials coming of age in this, right? You talk about the largest generation in U.S., bigger than the baby boomers, right? So you actually have a mass that is going to move forward of the most diverse kind of in U.S. history, right? And that generation was marked, right? Your generation in many ways, marked by, the financial collapse, right? The
Iraq War.
Yeah.
The two wars, 9/11.
Exactly. Right. And watching the whole promise of the American dream. I remember this being, Naomi Klein wrote about this in No Logo, right? Back in 1999, right into 2000, when she was talking about, say, what happens when you have, you're talking about people who have lost faith in the American dream. And what she was drawing attention, what happens actually when you have a next generation, this generation, your generation, right? Where that American dream they never bought into to begin with because it wasn't a reality. Right. So my generation watched the factories close. Right. And we we were a smaller generation. Right. And we watched the factories close. We watched it all and saw that kind of our hopes being kind of dashed. Right. And this kind of stuff. Right. Millennials have basically say, look, there's nothing there. You're going to get you shit jobs for the rest of your life. Right. Yeah. Maybe you'll get something down the road and all this stuff. We've taken away all the infrastructure. You're not going to have Social Security. We're cutting. And now we're going to have a financial collapse. Right. And so you're screwed while the boomers hang on to power. Right. That began to emerge. And then Gen Z comes in that wake. Right. Where the people that are their older brothers and sisters, right. The people that are kind of in front of them and even their parents in many cases, right, have a very different mentality. And we're starting to see elected officials, right, left-leaning elected officials kind of getting the power and providing those kind of those particular icons like AOC, right, the squad, the whole squad, for example, and that has kind of created that stuff. And so we're seeing this exactly.
Summer Lee, we're seeing it here in Pennsylvania. Sarah Namarato, Fiedler.
I mean, it's incredible, right? And they're women, in many cases, women of color, right? Who are kind of out in front of this movement, which is more representative of this. So when you got folks on Gen Z doing this organizing and stuff, right? You're actually having people that are looking around and doing the organizing that look more like them. And the people who are in power that are telling them what they should do don't connect. Right?
Yeah. One of the things I want to rail on, speaking about disconnect from people in power, I really hate this, this rhetoric where you have to go tell these kids they have to go out and vote to make things matter. And it's just the politics of voting and the politics of this movement are two separate things. Voting, yes, matters, but don't be telling people to go fucking vote right now. This is not the time to tell. For instance, my state rep, Patty Kim, was at a rally speaking, and she said, go vote. You have to vote because the people inside don't care about you because the voter turnout's only 17%. And it's no, you're telling a bunch of people who are living in Democratic districts to go vote for you, because that turnout is so low that the other people don't care. No, it's what are you going to do as our elected official to do this? Why, instead of you harping on us to go vote, and telling your voters to go vote, people who are mostly in Democratic circles within the city of Harrisburg to go vote, or they're in gerrymandered districts that have Republican representation because of the 2010 maps and don't have any representation, you're going to tell them to go vote, who are disenfranchised? No, what are you going to do as that elected official instead of telling people to go vote? Because I feel that messaging is empty rhetoric.
Right. And I think this is really important for liberals out there when you're
doesn't connect with the younger generation right now who want fucking things to change today.
Right. And I think that this is where, I check for all the liberals out there, right, who are kind of listening to this now, right? Is that when you are looking to younger folks, right now who are organizing, and you're feeling the need to say you should go vote, you should check yourself for a moment and ask yourself, what are you actually saying for there? Are you telling them you don't like what they're doing and they should be doing something else, right? Or are you basically saying, hey, look, we need to take over power and control through getting more kind of people representative?
Or you should just go vote for the same status quo that's been in office that hasn't done anything for you over the past 20 or 30 years.
In my mind, that's what the former is all about, right? Is by saying you should not be doing this, and it misrecognizes where power stems from. And this has also been a problem in the Democratic Party for a long time. When it made the alliance with the professional class, it misunderstands now where power comes from. That's why we get all this crap about messaging, and that as if the message is the only thing. That's why we rely upon consultants in the Democratic Party, right? Because we've misplaced power. We think power is in the words of these people who are experts. Not that those aren't important, but that's not where power is. Power is in organized solidarity and mass movements. That's where the power lies. And there's been a disconnect that in a long time, right? When the Democratic Party severed itself from the labor movement, when it cut itself off from the radicals on the left and aligned with people who are in places like I work in the academy, right? And professional class people, and required a degree for every kind of thing that was involved with politics, right? They lost that ability to be able to see where that power is. So there's a way of helping that power find their way into the halls of legislation, and there's ways of trying to tell them to go away, that they're doing things wrong. And that latter way is a recipe for defeat. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. Yeah. So that I got that off my chest. There's a couple of other things I want to talk about. I think we should really touch on. I put this in the show notes. There's a really disturbing video from Now This, mashed together pretty much like the same day, where that guy said, you see this shield, there's still a shine on it.
Yeah.
All I gotta say is go get your fucking shine box. What movie is that from?
Who knows? What movie is the only movie that Sean ever talks about?
No. Oh my God, I'm going fuck Goodfellas. But no, but watching that thing, the pretty much like the 3 cop union heads went on a media blitz that day. We all saw the one with that fucking 5'2" cop, union cop talking about the shield and all that stuff. But there were also 2 other press conferences that happened, or 2 other media events. Lynch, who was also very horribly racist, police. He's part of the Sergeants Benevolence Union. He had a press conference underneath a bridge, same setup, all white cops wearing masks, telling them that we're doing our jobs and everything's a disgrace. What's going on? And then you have another police union official going on Trump on Fox News that night, pretty much begging Trump to bring in the national troops into New York City to stop the protest. I haven't really seen this. You have to watch this video for yourself. And also you should watch it within the context. These cop unions are pretty much starting to tell Trump they will be their fascist brown shirts to fight in the streets.
Yep. And
suppress this movement and to protect Trump at all costs. And I really think that's where we're heading in November, especially if Trump loses and loses badly.
Well, I'm hoping that doesn't. Let me rephrase this. I'm hoping these movements keep going because, and I do think
these movements at some point I think have to call for a regime change.
Yes,
I think that's where this ends.
And I think that's even the language that we're talking about here.
I mean, now, or I think it's subtle, the regime change stuff, but I think it's going to be becoming more and more overt. You know what I mean? I think it's only a matter of time before coronavirus, what happens during the pandemic, the economic issues, people facing no jobs, people getting forced back to work, pretty much is an army of scab labor available. If you listen to Michael Brooks and who's the other one? The woman on there. They were talking about this.
Nomiki Konst?
No, Jamie.
Oh, Jamie.
Sorry. Jamie. Pretty much we're talking about the availability of just scab labor to go into these workforces because of how there's so many people with little jobs available at this point. No, we're going to start seeing at some point this movement is going to become an economic movement. You can't have institutional racism and capitalism to exist. You can't destroy institutional racism without destroying or extremely reforming capitalism and the capitalist society we're living in right now. Yeah, and I think it's only a matter of time before we're not even touching on this yet. But I think it's coming. I feel like this is bubbling up, especially going to these protests. There's nurses showing up. There's people who are first responder or like frontline workers coming to these things who are black and brown. It's going to be it's only a matter of time. And I'm really waiting for this movement to take on a whole different approach to its own. We saw it this week in Philadelphia. Hundreds of sanitation workers had a rally and were supported by the community. Thousands more people are showing up. I mean, we're not really seeing it on TV, but there are still thousands of people marching in every single city throughout the country on a daily basis.
Yep. And
holding multiple rallies.
Well, and I think this is
on the same day.
Yeah, and I mentioned this like at the top of the show today about how that some of the mainstream media is beginning to, particularly like cable news, right? Not as bad.
The local media is really covering well. Philadelphia Inquirer is doing a hell of a job.
No, that's what I mean.
Covering what's happening.
We're looking at if we're looking at the national news, why some of what's happening in the national news is making a shift back towards coronavirus coverage is because I think that kind of stuff, what you were just talking about, is the stuff that scares the shit out of them, right? Is like when
we are in a revolutionary moment that's not stopping, and that's where, I mean, like I was talking to James this week. He was talking about the march on Saturday in Philadelphia, like. They walked from West Philly, from his place at 59th or 50th in Baltimore, where he was having tear gas coming into his apartment for how much for how much stuff was coming in. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
They were firing off in his neighborhood. He walked from 50th in Baltimore down to City Hall and then walked 2.5 miles up Broad Street into Temple, like into North Philadelphia, and went back to his house. He said it was one of the most empowering things. And also, like, you're just marching through neighborhoods.
Right.
You're not even marching you're going through the residential areas, and there's people standing on the side of the streets, cheering them on and stuff like that. The community support's there. This ain't going away.
Right. And
this is we're looking at this like this is weeks, months of protest.
Yep.
That are going to be ongoing, and it's like that. This genie's not going back in the bottle.
No, I mean, look, and you look at
and they're not going to be able to brutally suppress it.
Right. And you remember what was going on when we had, we were talking about this. We covered some of the, like the Amazon strikes, right? And we saw the leadership that was coming out of those Amazon strikes was primarily kind of people of color, right? And because that's what we're seeing, the kind of low wage jobs, right? This is where stuff is concentrated. But we're seeing the people pushing back, in particular kind of outside the kind of New York metropolitan area, right? Looking kind of those huge warehouses there. We saw some of that also in Pennsylvania, but also across the country where we saw that kind of that pushback. And so that was before, right, all the current uprisings in the wake of George Floyd's murder, right? And now we're saying both of these things happening at the same time, right? Recognizing that you've got these workers that are now considered essential have been kind of pushed to the bottom of the heap, right? And yet we require them to put themselves most at risk. They're pushing back from the economic end. And now we have a much even broader kind of critique of white supremacy and capitalism that is kind of emerging out of this movement. And those things, in my mind, those are coming together. And it's incredibly hopeful. At the same time that, you look at what's happening in the streets, it's not pretty. Right. This is hope, not in the kind of there are unicorns kind of thing. Right. This is hope in the sense that the people organizing on the ground are at a tremendous moment of opportunity here. And opportunities bring danger, yes, but they also bring possibility that we have not seen, at least in my lifetime.
Yeah. So. No, we're in a revolutionary moment, and something's going to be changing. We don't know what, but
right. Right, exactly. And I think that, again, we see anybody who interprets what Trump did this week about announcing his first new rally happening on Tulsa on Juneteenth. Anybody interpret it that anything other than him attempting to
mend bridges, mend fences? I heard Stephen Miller was writing his speech on race.
That's right.
So
Stephen Miller's writing that speech.
I think he's giving it the old college try.
This is going to be I think what this is going to be is that it's going to signify to
this is going to be like a fucking Hitler speech.
Yes, it's going to signify to the white nationalist troops that game on. right? I think because that's all they have left. They sees the kind of losing the support, kind of because of COVID-19, and because of mishandling of, virtually everything. Some of that stuff is kind of coming home to roost. So I think that's what we're going to see, and we shouldn't pretend anything otherwise. Michelle,
this is going to be a very dangerous speech.
Right. Michelle Goldberg, right, who writes for Daily Beast and elsewhere too. She did a great breakdown of this, and she was like, she was just like livid, right, and basically saying, "Look, if you think for 1 second,
this is him like inspiring a crystal knock, or like this is where this is where we're going. I mean, I hate saying this, but this is where it feels like we're going towards. This is a gut wrenching speech to even think this is happening."
Right.
I mean, like, this is not like going to be this is going to be a very bad speech.
Oh yeah.
And it's going to do a lot of damage.
Oh yeah.
And yeah.
Well, she did this great. She did an excellent job writing in the New York Times. She used to be Daily Beast. Now she's writing for the New York Times, an opinion writer. And the title of the piece is called "Trump's Grotesque Tulsa Trip." And she does a good job in this in breaking down some of the ridiculous stuff coming from like people like, Chris Cillizza and things like this, who are saying, well, Trump is kind of, maybe this is an opportunity for him to mend wounds and things like this. And she's like,
and Amy Goldberg is not
people.
And Amy Goldberg is not someone who is a like well liked. Michelle Goldberg is not someone who is well liked within the media. Like she has burned a lot of bridges with people through professional stuff, and no one likes her. And you know what? I like that she's outspoken with this.
Yeah, no, exactly.
She's not a nice person. Like, yeah.
No, but she's, like, I'm all right with that.
Yeah, no, I am too, but.
No, she goes, like, I'm going to give you, here's a little sample from what she wrote. She goes, baffling some observers seem to be taking McEnany, this is Trump's spokesperson, at her word, even if they doubt the president can pull it off a conciliatory performance. Writing for CNN, Chris Cillizza speculated that the intended audience for the Tulsa rally could be the suburban white women disgusted by Trump's response to the killing of George Floyd and the resulting protest. Politico Playbook said, of this political moment, John Trump is torn between the impulse to speak and to cater to his base and the demands for blah, 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 blah. And she just basically is like, are you freaking kidding me, people? We're going to do, no, we're not doing this again. Right, exactly.
Like, just slapped across the face.
Right, it was a great piece because she calls these people out for kind of like pretending once again, right, that we're in some sort of kind of normal thing to see.
Yeah, like going
for him to be presidential.
I mean, like, there were people. Okay, so the Tulsa massacre has come up many times in the Black Lives Matter protests here in Harrisburg, which haven't been that big, maybe 100, 250, 500 people. Like, people have bring up the Tulsa massacre. You are going to enrage people with this.
Of course. And that's what it's designed to do, right?
Yeah.
Crazy, man. Crazy.
I know. I mean, Joe Biden said it this week. Like, Mattis said it. He's dividing us using a tactic of Nazi Germany, division. Yeah, I mean, like, we are watching his support. I think there's a legitimate. I think his Republican support is just eroding right now. I don't think Republicans will vote for him. I think
did you see this piece? You know what? I didn't. I caught this in my headlines, but didn't follow through on it. Did you see about that? There's something in the Republican platform that states some sort of mild like disapproval of this president, and I don't know if that's real, right, or to what degree, or who floated that, or how it got floated. But I saw that come in my feeds this week. But anyway, so it does seem that kind of to bolster exactly what you're saying.
I mean, I think it's a big deal that Romney marched last week, as much of a gesture as it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, like that. No, it'll be interesting to see how much of his base leaves him. Like, how much of that base leaves him, like the donor class and stuff like that, who've already made out like bandits.
Yep.
And get behind Biden.
Yep.
Because, like, I mean, Nomiki Konst made a good point this week. The militia dudes showing up to protest with their guns are not in the same group of Republicans as like your middle class, like suburban people. who are wealthy and well off.
That's true. But those people, those wealthy and well off, have relied upon those people with the guns as to be their foot soldiers to get them into office up until now. So, I mean, what I'm hoping that this is going to ultimately bring about is a finally kind of like a fracturing of the Republican Party, and to break that alliance, because that's what it's been. It's depended upon. Look, this has been a white identity party for a long time, a rich white identity party for, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, anyways, a lot of stuff. All right, I think we should take a break. What do you say?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna break a little bit with format.
Holy shit! I didn't even really look at the other stuff on the second page.
Yeah. I do want to get the stuff that guys more closer to home here, so we're gonna do that right after the break. But I want to break with format a little bit here. I want to leave you with some sound leading into the break here. This is from Naomi Klein, and I think it's perfectly fitting for this particular week. This is a speech that she gave at Haymarket Books, and this was 3 years ago. Right, this is 3 years ago. I'll leave you with Naomi Klein. We'll be back right after this break.
One moment when it is incredibly important to resist is in that moment when they're trying to scare you. So I just want to put that out there tonight. In that moment, when they're telling you to stay home, that is when you go out. When they're saying stay home, go out. We don't know when it will happen. Okay? Flood the streets. That matters more than anything. When they try to take away the right to protest, flood the streets, okay? Get ready.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. This day in labor history, the year was 1904. That was the day that 18,000 workers in Chicago's stockyards went out on strike. Work in the stockyards was often brutal and dangerous. Thousands of workers toiled in the yards, many of them immigrants from Eastern Europe. They worked butchering and processing the hogs and cattle raised in the American West into meat for distribution by rail to consumers across the country. The industry gave Chicago the nickname Hog Butcher for the World. In 1904, the Amalgamated Meat Cutters Union organized a strike. The main demand was increased wages. The meatpacking companies were able to get scabs to cross the picket lines and act as strikebreakers. Most were African Americans and European immigrants. Many of these workers had not been organized by the union, which was dominated by the skilled German and Irish packing house workers. Novelist Upton Sinclair visited the stockyards during the strike to research conditions faced by the workers. In his famous novel, The Jungle, Sinclair gave a fictionalized account that captured the devastating impact of the scabs on the strike. He wrote, quote, "Such were the stockyards during the strike, while the unions watched in sullen despair, and the country clamored like a greedy child for its food, and the packers went grimly on their way. Each day they added new workers, and could be more stern with the old ones, could put them on piecework, and dismiss them if they did not keep pace." It was not until the 1930s, when the stockyard unions took seriously the task of organizing across race, ethnic, and skill lines, that they finally won a contract and gained the rights of union recognition. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Welcome back to Raging Chickens Out the Coop podcast. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, here with my failed state survivor, Sean Kitchen. Yes, once again, Sean got a little call with some kind of news in Harrisburg, but so he had a little bit longer break. Sorry about that. But he is back. And, let's go back right up to the top of the show. Right up to the top of the show, we had sound from Summer Lee this week, where she and members of the Pennsylvania House Legislative Black Caucus basically took over the rostrum, right?
Unfurled a Black Lives Matter banner.
Yes. So walk us through that. What happened? What's going on? And what do you think is kind of this represents in the State House?
Well, one, it was a powerful protest to watch as it was going down. I watched it like 30 minutes in. I didn't realize what was happening. So apparently, like, members of the Black Legislative Caucus pretty much told leadership, hey, we're doing this. Sorry, but,
Sorry, yeah.
like 10 minutes in advance. They pretty much like tipped off, and leadership was no. I mean, Dermody approved, was okay with it. I heard he was actually like proud of it afterwards too. To watch
after he got past the fear of the werewolf, then he got realized that okay, this is actually kind of good.
No, actually, he was in approval from the beginning.
Okay, that's good. All right.
Yeah, I mean, but it also, I mean, it shows you, one, don't fuck with Summer. But like, we should look at what they were protesting. So this goes back to 2018 when Antoine Rose was shot in the back and murdered by an East Pittsburgh police officer, and who was then acquitted. Summer Lee had a rally. It was probably one of the saddest like things I've been to. Besides, like, I mean, that and like the child sex abuse report were two of like the most solemn things like I've been to in Harrisburg. And she brought Antoine Rose's mother came to the Capitol that day and said, "I am Antoine's mom." There have been bills sitting in her in Judiciary Committee, untouched, that would solve or put a fix in a lot of like state police reforms and use of force. And they took over the rostrum afterwards. I mean, we've been watching what the Republicans have been doing for 12 weeks, passing COVID bill after COVID bill after COVID bill, clawing back at the governor's demands, or the governor's orders, while doing nothing for working people for 12 weeks. No paid sick leave, no hazard pay, no minimum wage, no PPE for workers, like nothing like that. And Republicans shot those amendments down. And I mean, like, you go home for a couple of weeks and then the George Floyd protest breaks out. And I mean, the legislators, a lot of them were at these protests. If you watch from social media, and a few of them organized this coup and they pulled it off. And no, I mean, it was a very, very powerful thing to watch.
But I have to say, and even if on the one hand,
I mean, this also comes the week after progressives rake in very big primary wins.
Right.
Summer Lee wins by 50 points. You have House members getting kicked out or getting primaried, who lost in primaries. You have very progressive, emboldened movement too.
Well, and I think
and also go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's like a real good lesson for like the way progressives should act, right? I mean, she like just knocks that election out of the park, right? Overwhelming victory, and then uses that as then this is your launching pad, right? And then if you are never going to have like more power than you do after that kind of win, and then you're basically saying to your supporters, "I'm with you." Right, you're building your kind of support even further, and at the same time, you're drawing other people with you, and which was again, I think, why she was kind of front and center on this.
I mean, like, she was one of the people who organized this, and they think that people think that she will never get a bill of hers passed again in her career.
We'll see,
because of doing this, and they think like she's one of the most hated. She's like the most hated person right now inside that chamber, for defying the institutions and, organizing this and unfurling a Black Lives Matter banner and allowing people to sound off and, literally explain about like the shit they've had to deal with the cops and
no, exactly,
how shameful it is that these bills stayed there.
Exactly. And for those people who say, she broke the quorum and blah, 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 and never get a bill passed.
Well, guess what? This got committee meetings scheduled, and then a promise to a special session.
Yeah, well. Yeah, well. But the thing, look, even though what she says, like, if you look at what was said in that, right? I mean, and because people will look at the tactics, and there'll be all this kind of like stuff about optics and blah, 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 and shouldn't decor, all that garbage. That's all about like, the codes of maintaining and disciplining people to kind of follow a particular order and keep things as they are, right? That's what they'll focus on. But if you actually look at what she said, right? What she said was pretty straightforward. We have all these bills that have come up there, and she led with this, right, about Antoine Rose, right, and said we have all these bills that have been sitting committee and she even offered to Turzai, said, look, all we ask you is to put your name on these things and bring them forward. We don't ask you to even agree with everything that's in these bills, but allow them to be able to come out and be debated upon. And then if we do that, we can have an actual real discussion and we can work and compromise and all this stuff. What she's saying is saying, let the process of democracy work, is essentially what the message was. And again, if you have been thwarted, if the democracy that is in our state has been thwarted to such a degree, right, that Turzai and the Republican right have abused our democracy and have prevented any kind of legislation that's in kind of like for people to kind of move forward, well, what are your other options? And yes, guess what? Discomfort is going to be part of that. And Summer Lee understands that, right? Summer Lee understands that discomfort is going to be part of this, right? And, all the respect in the world to her.
Yeah. Nope. I mean, I think it also shows you that, once Malcolm Kenyatta spoke again up there in a very good way. I think it shows you that the incoming Democrats, they're acting like they want the majority.
Yeah.
I remember speaking to Chris Rabb for a while ago when he first got elected. He's like, no, in order to win, we have to eat our own. In order to have a majority in this house, we have to eat our own. And no, it's changing the culture of that caucus.
It was kind of interesting to see him as kind of like the veteran up, as well, which is, he's yeah. Anyways.
No, but I think about it. He's the person who led this movement in the House to change like these progressive seats. He got elected in 2016 where literally 3 weeks beforehand, there was a special election. They picked the person he was running against in the primary for the House seat. And then he beat the incumbent who won that special election. He's like, no, we're still going through with this.
There we go.
And he won and he's been up there since. And you think about him, then you have Summer Lee, Sarah Enamorado, Elizabeth Fiedler coming in. Mm-hmm. Danielle Otten, two of the two biggest people on the list, the shit list to go after this primary season was Danielle Otten and Summer Lee, and they both won with the largest margins.
Right, exactly.
These people are just fucking around at this point.
Well, that's just it. It's and I think this is amazing.
And I think we're done fucking around. We're
exactly.
I feel like the culture has changed a lot over the last 3. And you look who's coming in. You have Emily Kincaid, Jessica Benham, Nikhil Saval, Rick Krajewski. You're gonna have a stellar lineup of actual progressives that we need in the House, in the State House. Instead of running these people for Congress. Right. And losing these congressional campaigns.
And what's interesting, I think, about all those people that you just mentioned, and I think in addition to our last wave of progressive victories, right, is that I think they understand exactly this, right? They don't understand. It's not just about me as an individual. They understand the working together thing. They understand the need to kind of develop this kind of caucus and power center within there, which is exactly what we need.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll see a formation of the progressive caucus.
Yeah, well, I remember, when Sarah Enamorado, Summer Lee, and Elizabeth Fiedler won, right? And how they essentially kind of campaigned together. They went around and campaigned together, and saw themselves as part of an emergent caucus at that time. That has continued to play out, which has been amazing.
Yeah.
So. But sad things, I guess, with every good thing, the emergence of this amazing progressive movement within the state of Pennsylvania, there's sad things, right? With the good and the bad, and there's that we're going to have to lose Turzai. He's finally made it official.
I'm actually sad about this.
You're losing a bunch of material.
Yeah. My job is going to be harder with him leaving. It's going to be harder. It's I want to try harder to mine for turds at this point.
Well, man, you still have
Daryl Metcalf.
There's always him.
Yeah.
It's always him. I know, Sean. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you know what this means. That's going to mean at least an extra hour of work for you a week. So it's trying to figure out what to do. It's not going to. It's you're shooting fish in a barrel there for a while, and now it's oh shit, I got to actually go to the lake.
No. I have another fish in the barrel. Like, so we're already like talking about who's next.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's going to be fun. But no, I feel like we should talk about like some of the things that like with Terzai, like looking back upon Terzai.
I wish I had that music. It was like, yeah.
The man who said voter ID, done.
Voter ID, done.
So Mitt Romney can win the state of Pennsylvania. Like,
yep.
There was that. I still love the teacher's comment with the video. That was just like, that is just like all time.
You don't care about kids.
Yeah. That, special interest people and, monopoly.
I do have to say, I feel a little bad for Terzai, right? Because he didn't get the kind of national platform that I really think he deserved. Right. I mean, I think he should have been a pariah at the national level, like given the stuff that he's done here in Pennsylvania. But he just I don't know if it's just because he's that much of a horrible individual that people didn't even want to be around him too much. That even reporters who report on the horrible things the right wing does, he really said, I'm not.
So like so one of my consultant friends, Joe Corrigan out of Philly, who's pretty funny on Twitter. He said, this guy is married to a doctor and his brother is a teacher. Why is he this fucking bad as a human being?
Oh, God.
I mean, there are a lot of great things. Like I was just tweeting about his just rambling fucking speech, his going away speech the other day. Like he was just saying shit along the lines of like, I don't even know where to begin. Like pretty much like all lives matter. He was saying like all lives matter bullshit up there on the fucking rostrum. Literally like imagine Mike Terzai going into the office. Like that's how bad the speech was. Like it was just, it was like as bad as something that Michael Scott would have written. Like just watching it for like, and it was an hour and like 10 minutes long too. Like there was just there was no coherent, there was no cohesiveness to it. Like usually these things are like 15, 20 minutes. He like went on for an hour. Pete Schweier afterwards tweeted, just for the record, the Gettysburg Address was 227 words.
Oh my God.
I'm really looking forward. One thing I am like really looking forward to is the stories that are going to come out of caucus about him. Someone was like, can you people just stop with the clapping of this guy? And like, I'm like, yeah, they're not clapping because they like him. They're clapping because they fucking hate him and he's leaving. Like they're clapping because they never have to deal with him again. Like when Picola left the House to go to the Senate, and in his farewell speech, they were just like cheering him and gave him a standing O because of how much of an asshole he was, and they wouldn't have to work with him again.
Man, so who steps up then in his place?
I think so. Brian Cutler is going to step up, and then there's going to be a really big leadership battle happening afterwards.
Because he's like, so I mean, this is kind of like in the middle of his term, so right. So Cutler's basically going to step up to fill the gap, right? Yeah. Until they can actually have the full on kind of like bloodletting that's going to go on. I think it's going to sound a little something like this, right? Part of it.
Challenge. The ancient laws of combat. We have met at this chosen ground to settle for good and all. Who holds sway over the 5 points?
Yeah, I think it's going to be something like that. It'd be great if that did.
That's exactly where I thought you were going to go with this. No, there's going to be a bloodletting. So apparently, like Cutler is sort of responsible for the COVID cover-up. Mm-hmm. He is the only person apparently who knew about it, didn't tell Terzai or anyone else in leadership. So they're looking at Kerry Benninghoff for being the next House Speaker. And, I mean, he's going to be a nicer person. He's going to be a lot more well-polished than Mike Terzai. He'll smile and, give you sane quotes to the TV, won't freak out on protesters. But he'll still do the bidding of the Commonwealth Foundation.
Oh, he's a doctor.
Does that mean the Democrats are going to play nice with him now because he's nicer to them?
I don't think so.
Okay,
no,
good.
I don't think so. I think Benninghoff will probably be just as partisan as Terzai. So we'll see.
Well, there we go. Poor Mike Terzai.
New boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah. Turzai. So what's
Just
he going
not
to do
as
now,
crazy.
man? He's not going to have any work. He's going to be like fumbling around building like, I don't know, like little backyard raised beds or something like that, you know? Or is he going to get a job with a multi-million-dollar lobbying organization? It's like,
I think he's going to be working for the oil and gas industry.
yeah, that'd be my guess.
I think, well, the rumors at the time when he was back in March or February before this all happened, he was going to take a job with People's Gas, the new conglomerate between People's Gas and Aqua America. You know, so what do you think is going to happen once a water company and a gas company merge? This is about distribution and,
one rises to the top, that's for sure.
I mean, if there's one
floats,
thing
man. That's priority.
if there's one thing Mike Turzai is known for, it's privatizing utilities like water and gas. I mean, that's privatizing public goods has always been something that that Turzai has had in his interest. So, no shock that he's doing that again.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, crazy. Well, sayonara, Mike Turzai. Sean, I'm very sorry that your job is going to get harder, but you know what? I think for the rest of us, I think we're just going to be happy that he's gone, and I think you can soldier through, sir. I think you can soldier through. Last thing we got today in the PA Focus, there's been a lot going on. I mean, like, you know, I mentioned up ahead, there's been, you know, more than 100 protests across the state this past week. It's been amazing. There was protest right here. There was two of them actually in Percy, right? I mean, that was amazing. And like in Sellersville and in Souderton and amazing stuff in Lehigh Valley and Doylestown, or like all across the state, and you know, small and large. It's been phenomenal to see. The other thing I wanted to kind of put up before we hit our break and go on the last call today is like we had the PA system of higher education. As you know, I teach at Colston University, and but kind of involvement that goes on there. And there's been big discussions. There's been some discussions, I should say, about what are the plans for the fall. As we see that as states have began to open up, we see increased numbers of COVID-19 cases, right? In cases like, you know, in Arizona, where we see the kind of the maxing out of their hospital systems and things like this, the same kind of thing that we saw in New York and New Jersey and things like this early on. So there's big questions about how do you actually kind of return in any kind of way that's safe. And Chancellor Dan seems to basically be convinced 100% that we're going to be able to go back into some sort of face-to-face instruction in the fall. But frankly, I don't know how this happens, right? I want to give you an example. Guy I work with, Mike, he's basically took some of the guidances about, you know, having to kind of deal with class size and ensure that social distancing. There's a lot of nice words that are coming out right now about that, how every university is going to need to follow these broad guidelines about how to keep people at a safe distance from one another, ways to mitigate the risk of infection by wearing masks and so on, changing instructional and work schedules that rely upon remote work more extensively, right, and protocols to identifying and isolating people with contracted diseases, right? These are all great principles, but the devil is always in the details. So what Mike did is he went in one of the classes that he teaches in, said, okay, we need social distancing. We know social distancing is 6 feet, right? So he went to his classroom has a capacity, right? On the wall, the capacity is something like 38 students, right? Even though there's more chairs in the room than those 38. Attention, fire marshal. But say 38 capacity, and just went around and basically measured 6 feet in every direction. Say, how many students can you actually get into that one classroom that normally has about 40 students in it, right? And he put a little Post-it on each one of those chairs that, and then measured 6 feet from that. And guess how many? Wasn't 40, wasn't 30, wasn't 20, it was 9. You get 9 students in that classroom and ensure social distancing, right? So now you got to multiply that, right, by every class that is taking place on campus. And suddenly you start to see that you're talking about, like, you know, basically a 75% reduction of class capacities. So there's these fanciful discussions about somehow rotating students through in groups, right? So that you'd have 9 students one day and 9 students the next day and 9 students the next day, right? Which is in my mind, not good. Then plus they're talking about shifting to all grab and go food, right? So no more dining hall, just grab and go stuff. And so I have a question about that. What happens to the food service workers, right? What happens to all those workers? Are you just basically going to ship in packaged food and just have it put it out and have one or two people in terms of a cashier and that's it? What happens to all those folks, right? And how do you ensure that the students that are coming in at the same time in order to get that grab and go food are going to maintain social distancing? There's also those plans to convert, as I've mentioned before, in the dorms from doubles and triples to move them all to single occupancy. And this is something that's actually in the Board of Governors plan. Okay, how is that funded? Because as I mentioned on this plan here, mentioned on our podcast, is that at Kutztown University, somebody let it slip that one of the ways they were thinking about doing that is having students pay double or triple, right? Which is, again, the burden then shifts on the students. This is all at a time when we know that universities have been crying out because of their budgetary losses, because they've had to return a bunch of the tuition dollars and housing dollars back to students. And Kutztown University and several other universities now have already announced that they're considering retrenchment, which is the kind of like the gutting of faculty and programs, right? How does this all work? Right? How does this all work in the midst of, you get the stuff, these messages from the chancellor, which are, we're all working together and we got heroes working for us. At the same time, they're talking about killing the heroes. They're taking about all those frontline workers and kicking them into the curb. I'm looking at what happened at Kutztown University. We've talked about this on the podcast quite a bit. What happens at Kutztown University when we had that kind of adjunct faculty member who found out that they needed life-saving surgery, right? It wasn't a question about, having a mole removed. They had to have, if they wanted to live, they had to have this surgery, right? And that was going to require a pretty significant recovery time. And that person did not have enough sick days to cover that, right? So instead of allowing us, other faculty members in the union, to donate our sick time to make sure that that person has their benefits, right? Make sure that person has their position, right? And maintains it. Instead of doing that, they get rid of them. They get rid of them. Which means loss of health insurance at a time when he needs life-saving surgery, right? That happened. And that wasn't the first case. That was just the most egregious. And so we, as individual faculty members, had to raise money to cover their kind of COBRA costs just to make sure that he was going to be able to be taken care of. Or she. He or she. That's messed up. This is kind of like that mentality writ large. What we're going to do is we're just going to cut people loose and screw the consequences for them. That's it. And I want to remind you too as well, over the past several years, what the university has been doing as part of its austerity plans has been gutting the custodial staff, right? How are you going to get people to ensure there's adequate cleaning that's going on, because there's supposedly deep cleaning supposed to happen all the time? Who's going to do it? Are they going to hire more union workers, or are they going to contract out to some fly-by-night organization that is going to come in and kind of do spit polish the chalkboards every week? Who the hell knows? Right? These are real people, real considerations. And so we're looking at this kind of stuff. Like, people thought it was crazy, this big bailout money and all this stuff, with the idea about, even like the Green New Deal, that we need to kind of fundamentally rethink the way that we invest in what we're doing in order to support this. And this is even more the case now in the wake of the coronavirus. Whatever we're talking about returning to normal.
Human life is expendable.
Exactly.
And we're seeing it.
Well,
Human life is a expendable commodity.
Yep.
And capital.
Especially when it's on the labor end of things.
Yes, and that's what we're seeing right now.
I guarantee they would. The university would make a good show about putting students right in like little bubbles, right, to show that the students are safe, right, which is a complete freaking lie. Because you said we're going to make sure the students are safe over here. Meanwhile, everyone else on your campus, except the administration, everyone else on your campus is put at risk, which then puts the students at risk. Remember that saying? Like, our teaching conditions are your learning conditions, right? It's the same thing as like the working conditions of ASME staff members, the working conditions of faculty members, and the learning conditions of students are all in this mix together. And they are planning some kind of theory about how to return right here. And at the same time, let's remember, all these people are seeking to get immunity from lawsuits so that they will not have to face the consequences of their choices.
Now, is Pesci looking for immunity?
They're in that mix. I don't think they have had an act. It's in some of that legislation. Remember the legislation we've talked about? I wish I had the number right here, 1121 or something like this. In some of that legislation, that's what's built into this, and it's built in what they're talking specifically about when it comes to the consolidation or the shutting down of different universities.
Yeah, this was pre-COVID, right? Yes,
right. But
yes,
how much you want to make a bet that is exactly how they're thinking about what we're talking about with COVID?
Yeah.
So whatever. So, there's also legislation that's happened at the federal level that seeks to kind of give particular kinds of immunity to organizations. I guarantee that they would seek that out. But we shall see. So, who knows what's going to happen at this point. I know I said this before, that I was going to there's going to be a piece that was going to coming out. I started working on it. We had just some crazy stuff going on to kind of flip my kind of time upside down. We had our own little COVID scare, right? And it turns out that everything's fine. But that's thank God that's the case. And that just kind of threw things into a little bit of disorder and put me a little bit kind of behind the curve on some things that I wanted to be coming out. But in the wake of the decision of the Board of Governors, from what I understand, it was a unanimous decision to basically go full throttle into a kind of face-to-face in the fall.
And this is happening while UPMC and other hospitals are bracing for a second wave hitting in August.
You bet. And there's also things like this, that there's coded language, which feels to be like coded language in some of the descriptions of what they're saying. Say, we might want to encourage and welcoming, and they talk about inviting some students back to campus while preventing other students from returning. Who are they talking about? Who's getting the invitations and who's being kept away? And on what grounds?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't help to think, I'm sorry, but I cannot help to think that the consequence of that, whether it's intentional or not, is going to have a huge racialized component to that. I bet you. And so you're basically, what's this? Is this going to be the whiteification once again? After all the kind of push for diversity, we're going to basically force those folks with the fewest resources, right, in those communities most hard hit by the COVID-19 are going to be those ones who are going to pay the highest cost and have the highest learning curve to kind of shift all online? Let's see. I can't wait to see the statistics about what are the demographics and what are the breakdowns of the people who fell off the charts, who disappeared from the rolls this past fall after COVID-19. And are those going to be the students? Are we going to look at those things, say, hey, look, they fell off the charts. They're not going to stick around, so let's keep them at home. I don't know. But we're going to be digging into this. So more on this kind of in the coming weeks, because they say the plans will be finalized in the coming weeks. We want to know all this. We're going to demand transparency both at Kutztown University and across the state system, because this is, I don't buy we're all into this together, right? So anyways. All right. Got that off my chest. Anything else you want to throw in the mix right now, Sean?
No, nothing really.
All right. Sounds good. All right. We're going to take a quick break. Remind you that you become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Just go to patreon.com. So that's RC Press and become a patron today. We're going to be back right after this quick message with this week's Let's Call. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. For the past 7 years, Raging Chicken Press has brought pull-no-punches, progressive reporting and commentary to the interwebs. Our long-form investigative pieces, stories that no access journalist wants to touch, or rollicking weekly podcasts strive to advance progressive movements and perspectives rooted in the struggles happening across the country or down the street. We've broken national stories and caused our share of discomfort in the halls of power. If we want a progressive future, we need progressive media. And you can help support Pull No Punches, homegrown progressive media today. Become a member of Raging Chicken Press for as little as $5 a month. Simply go to patreon.com/rcpress and choose your membership level. We need to make sure to keep the movement in the media and the media in the movement. Best way you can do that is to become a member of Raging Chicken today by going to patreon.com/rcpress. Thank you for your energy, your encouragement, and your support. Keep up the fight. Welcome back, everybody, to Raging Chicken's Out to Coop podcast. Last call. We got beer news, we got space news, and everything else that we feel like throwing into the mix, into this little meat grinder that we call life at this point in our thing. But yeah, kind of a couple of Space Force news things right off the bat. Space Force is a new bill passed by the Senate Armed Service Committee. It was passed on Wednesday, and although there was something that wasn't included in it, everyone basically said, "Okay, wait, we need to get all the kind of requisitions kind of squared away, because how do people actually how do they request things and funding and what's the approval process for contracts?" Now, they conveniently left that out of the bill, as opposed, despite the fact that, that they said that was the most highest priority. But they did call for the establishment of the Space Force National Guard. So this is going to be you're going to hear the giant sucking sound that's going to privatized contracts. It's going to be approved behind the dark walls of the Space Force right there. So that's there. But, I don't know. If I had to join a National Guard, I'm going with Space Force. I don't know about you. And you know what? Think about it like this. You could defend, the planet from kind of interplanetary invasion at the same time that you get free college and tuition. It's pretty cool. Right? Here you go. Space Force. Gotta love it. And yes, it was also cool to see that 8,500 airmen and women volunteered to join the Space Force. That was announced this week. And they had the ultimate ultimate high ground, right? That's they're going to defend the ultimate high ground. This is pretty cool. I thought that was, I don't know what to think about that. Like, although, it's like either maybe there's something really wrong in the Air Force. People are like, I gotta get the hell out of here. Right? Get me out of here. Or you know what? Maybe Netflix's series actually had its desired effect, and getting people to join the Space Force. So over 8,500 people joined or signed up. Now, they are saying, U.S. Space Force is saying that not all of them are going to get accepted, prioritized. They're going to prioritize people who already are kind of in space-related things. But I can't remember the total number, but it's like tens of thousands of people that are going to actually be in the Space Force now after these transfers go on. And I think the transfers begin on September 1st. So there. And then I just got to say a little bit about Netflix Space Force. I mean, I was such a freaking booster of it for the longest time. But Sean, you said you have not watched it yet. Is that right?
I've watched like the first 3 episodes.
Okay. Any initial takeaways?
I mean, it's slower for me. I think it's like very cinematic, like the like the way it's done. You know what I mean? And not like an Office type. Yeah. So it's different.
Yeah.
It's more movie like and less TV show like. So.
Yeah, I'll say 2 things about it. Right. I don't want to. If people have not watched it yet, I don't want to give any spoilers. But it. I wish I was looking for this article beforehand because I read it this week and I don't know what I did with it. But I think there's something somebody was writing about this to say Space Force is not the satire we need right now. Right. And I think that's true. Right. I think that if I had any letdown, I have to say I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. Right. But if I had any letdown is that I wanted more political content, right? I wanted more of that kind of that direct satire of what was going on. And there were bits of it here and there. And it was funny, it was amusing, but it felt more of like escapey than it did kind of critical engagement. So I'll just put that out there. I think it's still what's worth watching. I'm very much hoping that there's going to be in the second season, if it gets re-upped, and I believe it's going to be, the second season will be more it'll hit its stride. That also happened, I think, in The Office and some of the other kind of things too. It took a while for this to get rolling, to unpack and to really hit its ground. But it does have some fantastic moments.
So for me, like, I'm looking at it through the lens, like, is this like a one-off type thing? Like, you know what I mean? Is it one season and done, or are they looking to invest in making this an actual reoccurring TV show.
I think it's the latter. I thought initially that it was going to be a one and done, right? That they could just burn every freaking bridge that they needed to do it in that one-off season and be done with it, right? But it seems to be set up much more as an ongoing series, right? That they want to keep going, which is fine, right? But that's there. So just know that. That'll be my kind of quasi endorsement. For those folks who've not watched it, like I said, I don't want to give any spoilers yet. I do have to say, I just got through reading Station 11, right? And it really was a fantastic book. Station 11 is written by Emily St. John, and it takes place in the aftermath of a global pandemic that wipes out like 90+% of the population. And it centers around this traveling troupe of musicians and actors who perform kind of like some classical pieces and some Shakespeare plays in the kind of like with the vestiges of what's left of civilization, quote unquote civilization here. And there's some real, it's from, let me see, it was published in, I want to say 2018, but maybe 2015. How about that? But there are some real eerie echoes to our present moment. I mean, obviously we're not talking about the same kind of pandemic, but the echoes of where we are now and kind of thinking about some of these impacts, there's a real opportunity for some kind of critical reflection, right? And some distance. In my mind, this is some of the best things that good science fiction can do. It takes something that is a potentiality and projects it out so that we can see better our own present. And this is a great example of that. So I'd strongly recommend it. She got another book. It's called Glass House, I believe is what it's called, which I just picked up that I'm going to read. The Glass Hotel, I'm sorry, that I'm going to read too as well. I just love her writing. Her writing I thought was phenomenal. I just started rereading, I should say, because I read this a long time ago. The Parable of the Sower. This is part of Octavia Butler's Earthseed series. And holy crap, is that relevant to where we are right now, especially in the wake of all the protests and the police violence that we're seeing, but also in the best possible way. I mean, Octavia Butler, if you've not read any of her stuff, just get out there. I mean, she's some of the best, most, say, people want to point you to some kind of political sci-fi. Octavia Butler is where it's at, especially when it comes to racial politics and when it comes to thinking about wholesale transformation. Her book, I think it was I'll start with this and we'll go hear more about it. So I've started The Parable of the Sower. I'm about a third of the way through now, and it's just it's phenomenal. It's written as kind of like story and series of diary entries about this, as she's kind of the lead character is kind of developing this idea of a kind of a new kind of approach to religion. And I'll leave it at that. Don't let that steer you away. It's not like this religious book. It's a very, very interesting kind of engagement of how we think about change and race and class and stuff like that, especially in the wake of late capitalism. So definitely check that book out, Parable of the Sower. That's the first book in the series. I do want to say Free Will, huge shout out to Free Will Brewing. They put out a statement on Instagram and on all their pages this week, basically in support of the protest. And I want to read it in full because I think they deserve it right now, because they've been getting some flack from some freaking people who, whatever, I think we're better without them, for kind of joining this. But this is their statement. It says, "We took some time away from social media earlier this week to clear a space for more important voices to be heard. We also used that time to listen and reflect on our core values. This passive, quiet approach was a typical move for us, an easy one. In the past, we have always kept our message about beer and stayed out of the social and political issues. We told ourselves we should only be judged by our actions. No more being quiet. We stand in support of the Black community. We stand in support of all of those exercising their right to peacefully protest in our backyard and around the world. We stand with anyone trying to make a difference. Change is what this world needs right now, and it needs voices, ours included. In just an hour, this is when it came out, there will be a peaceful protest in Quakertown on the 4th Street Park, as well as tomorrow, June 7th, this is last weekend, on Lenape Park here in our hometown of Percy. We encourage all to join our neighbors and have our collective words heard. We are also pledging a portion of this weekend's reopening proceeds toward a local organization of our staff's choosing. This will not be the end. Further conversation will be had, and we will do better. Hashtag Black Lives Matter. I mean, I can't think of
That's a really good statement. I'm reading. Yeah. I just read what they have on their Facebook page, like the photo itself, like the first 2 paragraphs. Yep. No, I mean, like, it's good to see that. I mean, craft beer is a white space.
Exactly.
And I mean, like, just from going to Free Will a few times, like, you could tell, like, the owners are more conservative, libertarian bent. So it's really good seeing them coming out in support of this. Like, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And no, I mean, it's good. Like, there has to be a reckoning within the craft beer culture as well. With a lot of things. So it's good seeing Free Will come out with this.
Well, I think, look, I think, like, you remember the times that, I don't want to kind of like project this into kind of some sort of, fiction thing, but, it's like, it recalls to me the times back when pubs, right, were the center of democratic activity. And I think of what Free Will has built. And again, this is not just Free Will. These are craft beer places all around this country. They have built this around this idea of community and local investment and so on, right? Where people, seriously, where there was an absence of that kind of space, there is now a space that is created because of the work that Free Will has done, right? And other kind of similar kind of craft beer outlets. And for them to basically say, no, we're not going to kind of push away these conversations. We're going to welcome them. And we're going to step into this space. And we're going to make our stance clear. And I think there is nothing better than we could see that from local businesses to be stepping into this. And the fact that it is coming out of like, just as you said, a white dominated space like craft beer and kind of brought into this, all kudos in the world to these folks. And I really look forward to this going. And I've also been encouraged because, like, look, Percy is a really conservative area around here. There's always been spaces of liberal thought and kind of lefty folks and things like that, but it's dominated by the Trump signs that are out and around. Right. So that's that. When they kind of come in this community and kind of take that stance, all the better. And to see people joining on the Facebook pages with the comments in support of Free Will. Yes, there's a couple of people like, I'm never spending my money with you ever again. How dare you? You should have shut up. Free will, free speech. Right? I mean,
yeah, I know.
I mean, I love that. But I mean, the people that came out saying, thank you for doing this, I'm really encouraged to see that too as well. So if you want to, you can support them by you go to freewillbrewing.store. They have an online store. They actually delivered everywhere in Pennsylvania. You could stop by the store, you can order online, or they actually have these outdoor spaces now. They have a big, huge beer garden. And I have to say, they are doing a pretty damn good job of social distancing. Although I'm not going there yet. They are having people monitoring it and wiping things out. It's been really good to see. But in honor of them, basically, there's been a lot of people, especially since they started delivering beer across the state. They have been wanting, people have been requesting Safe Word, right, which is the Imperial IPA with mangoes and habaneros. The one it was one of my all-time favorites, one of my first favorites of Free Will. So they basically brewed it again and for popular demand, and now they're shipping it out. So that is available. That would be my suggestion. Support Free Will Brewing by going freewillbrewing.store. You can order there. You can pick it up right here in the Percy store, or you can visit their beer garden outdoors to the Percy space too as well. And I guess their other one is open now too as well. So kudos to them. Yeah. So anything else for the good of the order, Sean?
No, nothing too much. I'm going home on Monday, my dad's birthday. So I'll be back.
Happy birthday to your dad.
Mm-hmm. And then I will be back up here Tuesday morning. So
very good.
Get back as quickly as possible.
There you go. Home and back. There you go.
Yep. I did have some fun this week. I should say I tried out for the cop mustache.
Yes, you did, Handlebar. Yes, you did.
Oh no, I had some fun on a couple of my calls. I was just trying to hit up all the classic, like, stereotypical union white male tropes.
There you go. Like, well, you did it well.
Yeah. I know. I had a couple people say that. So couple of my union friends said that, like especially the women. They're like, "Thank God you shaved that fucking mustache, so I don't have to like look at like the."
Well, and if you're not watching the video of this, if you're actually listening to the podcast, I should say that Sean's face looks like a baby's butt now. It's nice. Looks like you got a little trim around the edges there too, as well.
Yeah, I got my haircut last week.
Reopen PA, huh?
So my barber called me or messaged me. He's like, when I'm coming for a cut tomorrow, I can do it. I'm like, okay. So, I mean, like we've all been to the protests at this point. So
yeah. Well, there you have it.
No, the one thing I need to do was definitely shave. I mean, it was just killer being out there.
Yeah.
Like the past couple of weeks with a mask on or with a bandana around my face and having like that beard. I could definitely see how having facial hair is a problem when it comes to like a mask.
Yeah.
And why that's the reason why firefighters have to be clean shaven.
Yep.
So I could see that.
Well, there you have it, man. Yep. All right. So, well, everybody, this is another week, another craziness. This is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press, talking to Sean Kitchen once again. Wishing you all well. We'll see you next week. Stay in the fight, and keep the nose of the grindstone. I've been so kind of amazed at seeing what's going on here. That's it for here. Got a hard out. I got to get over to my kid's school to pick up all his stuff and drop off the things. Another sad day of kind of COVID-19 conclusions as he ends his 5th grade and is headed to middle school next fall. So that's a whole other story that I'll get into someday. All right, but in the meantime, this is Kevin Mahoney, editor and founder of Raging Chicken Press. Thank you all for sticking with us. We'll leave you once again with the words of Summer Words to play us out. All right, everybody. See ya!
I know that this looks unusual, and I want to call your attention because we are in unusual times. For a long time, we have been sitting on bills that would change the state of our Commonwealth. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but for the last 2 weeks, people all across our country have been taken to the street to demand that we acknowledge that Black Lives Matter. For 1 year now, we have had a suite of bills that have sat in committee with no action. We have called for action, we have called for a vote with no response. We have brought hundreds and hundreds of people down to the Capitol, our constituents from around the Commonwealth, to demand access because we recognize that we cannot go on any longer until we do something about the police brutality that is happening in our Commonwealth. So today, me and the legislators that are around me are refusing to allow us to